UFC returns to action this week. UFC 302, Newark, New Jersey. Our hometown, our favorite fighter, Dustin Poirier, fighting for the title. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get to all the fights on the main card.
I'm excited.
I'm very excited about this fight card. I'm nervous about this fight card. My hands are already sweating about this fight card. And I say this fight card specifically and really only the main event. But before we get to the main event, let's start with the main card opener. At UFC 302, it's going to be the Jamaican Rude Boy Randy Brown taking on the Brazilian. This guy had like 6 names.
Elizu
Zelski dos Santos.
Pretty close. Something like that.
Randy Brown comes in 18-5 overall, 12-5 in the UFC, but he's won 6 out of his last 7, including 2 in a row. Zaleski, 10-3-1 in the UFC, 24 wins, 7 losses, 1 draw overall. He hasn't lost in his last 3 fights with 2 wins and a draw. This is a good fight, I think, to open the main card with. One interesting thing about Zaleski, one of his last big wins, I say one of his last, 2021, he beat Benoit Saint Denis, who's a guy that's well known now as a legit UFC contender.
And so got knocked out by Dustin Poirier.
He did get knocked out by Dustin Poirier, but that's a good win for Zaleski. Randy Brown, everybody knows him. He's tall, he's lanky, he's hard to deal with. He's a good striker, but he's also, people forget, because of his length and his size, his ground game and his submissions are sick.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Randy Brown, like you said, has been on fire as of late. I would say 6 of 7 last 6 of his 7 last fights he's won. Zaleski dos Santos, last 5 fights have all gone to the decision. He's been tough to take out, but he's lost. In my opinion, I think at the Prudential Center, Rude Boy Randy Brown is going to keep it busy. I think he has the age advantage, the reach advantage.
Yeah, I think the length and the reach is so hard to deal with when you're fighting Randy Brown.
And what would you consider as a big reach advantage or a big age difference? What would you say is a large age difference?
I would say once you get to about 5+ years is when it's really a factor.
So on those large, age gaps, fighters are winning like 67% of the time as a younger fighter. I think that's going to hold true here, even though Randy Brown's only 4 years younger than Dos Santos.
Yeah, Dos Santos 37. That's when you start. Once you get over 35 is when you, especially at the not the heavyweight division.
Right.
That's when you start seeing a slight drop off. So I think that plays into exactly what you're saying right now.
Both orthodox fighters, similar strikes per minute that they land. They're pretty accurate on both sides. Both can mix it up with the ground game. You've got 5 submission victories out of Randy Brown, 3 submission victories out of Dos Santos. Bunch of KOs between the two of them. What is that? 21 total.
21 total. 7 for Brown. 14 for Zaleski.
And then 13 total decision victories between the two. Both of them aren't losing often. 5 times for Brown, 7 times for Dos Santos. This is going to be a very interesting fight. Like you said, a very interesting main card opener. I got to go with Randy Brown. I think that big, 5-inch reach advantage. I'm an idiot sometimes when I'm glancing at the computer screen. I think that big reach advantage is going to play a big factor. He's younger. He's more active. He's already won in 2023.
24.
Or 2024. He's 6'3". He's got the height advantage. I think we go Randy Brown for the victory.
Yeah, one interesting thing. Randy Brown, he's finished. He has 6 finishes in the UFC. He's also been finished 4 times. So he doesn't go to the scorecard, at least in the UFC-wise, nearly as much as Zaleski, at least as of late.
Right.
But I agree with you. Everything you said, I think the reach is going to be the big factor in this. I got Randy Brown. I think he gets a finish. I'm not sure if it's going to be KO or submission, but I don't see this one going to the scorecard.
I got to agree with you there.
Let's move on. Next fight, we got another Brazilian, Jailton Almeida, coming off of his first UFC loss not that long ago, actually, in March to Curtis Blades. He's 20-3 overall, 6-1 in the UFC, and he's taking on Alexander Romanov, King Kong, 6-2 in the UFC, 17-2 overall. This figures to be a fight that's going to be determined on the ground. Both guys, very good ground games. Both guys determined to fight on the ground and win fights on the ground. How do you see this one going?
This one's going to be an interesting fight. His last fight, Almeida's last fight out.
Jailton?
Yeah, when he was trying to stay too long in on that submission attempt.
That was
He was dominating the fight early
his
on.
last couple fights. That was his he lost to Curtis Blades. His big thing was he's dominating these guys on the ground, but he's not going for the finish. He tried to do that against a guy in Curtis Blades who has a lot of power and who's good on the ground.
Right.
And he paid the price because Curtis Blades just elbowed him in the side of the head and punched him in the side of the head to death.
And I don't want to say dominating. He was dominating with takedowns.
He dominated the first round. Absolutely dominated. Then he tried to do the same thing the second round.
Yeah, he did. But what I'm saying is he wasn't beating the shit out of Curtis.
He dominated in the fact that he was doing what he wanted, but as you said, he wasn't beating the shit out of him. He was just holding him down.
So doing that, it's just, I don't know. It's weird. I hope he learned from it. I think he did learn from it. I think he, will continue to learn from those types of encounters. Don't show off. If you can go for the finish, go for the finish.
You know what's an interesting thing? He's known, like, that was the big thing about him. He's a boring fighter. He doesn't go for the finish. He has 6 UFC wins and 5 of them are by finish.
Right.
It's just the last couple of fights once he's got to this top echelon of guys.
He smothers people, and then kind of like a Makhachev type later on in the card. He picks them apart. He wears them out. They're big heavyweight guys. He fights in the 240s, I think is what.
240s, 230s, yes.
Right. They have 30 pounds on them. I always thought coming in that was going to be a problem in the heavyweight division. I've said that multiple times to you. The thing with Almeida is he's proved his wrestling is so good, his grappling jiu-jitsu is so good, it doesn't matter how strong your hands are. He's showed that he can get in on Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades did well by adapting to that.
Exactly. Now Almeida's got to adapt.
If Almeida can adapt here, I think he will wholehandedly beat Alexander Romanov. And although it's still a big test,
because Romanov's no joke on the ground. I mean, he has 10 submission victories. He's never been submitted. He's only been knocked out once. He only has 2 career losses, so he's not a joke. He's going to come in and put in a fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Romanov came in and won this fight. I don't think he will. I'm picking Almeida to win. I think he's going to respond because I think he's a championship-level fighter. And I think it was just a small setback and he's going to respond. But don't count Romanov off. He's a legit fighter. I think he's going to be right there. I think it's going to be a close fight.
They actually I'm looking at it now. They must have updated it in the last 2 hours. They put them back to the prelims. So they were replaced by Nico Price and Alex Morono.
Oh.
They just did that. So we covered that. It's still going to be a great fight. I'm going to be checking that one out on the prelims. If it's worth anything, I pick Alex Morono. He's a strong grappler over Nico Price. I think it's going to be a kind of normal day at work for Alex Morono, if you will.
Yeah, I'll jump on that with you and pick Morono. Let's move to a fight we know is not going to be removed from the main card, and that's the always entertaining Kevin Holland, a trailblazer.
Yes.
Trying to respond after a tough beatdown from Michael Venom Page in his last fight.
That was one that was just frustrating for him, man. You couldn't get in. Michael Venom Page was there to beat him up, not to fight. That was, a very quotable thing from the last fight. I think, like you said, I think Kevin Holland's coming out, with some changes this time. He's going to be more aggressive. I think he's going to, have to show.
Well, I don't think he could change too much. He couldn't do anything.
No,
there was nothing he could have changed against Michael Venom Page.
No, but make changes to his own game plan about how he's going to, start.
Well, we haven't even mentioned the other guy yet. Mikhail.
I was hoping you could say his name. That's why I didn't mention him.
Olechukuk.
Let's go with Mikhail now. From here on out, we're just going to call him
the
Mikhail.
poll. He's 7 wins, 5 losses, 1 no contest in the UFC, 19-7 overall.
Yep.
He does have 6 KO wins, but he has 4 submission losses, so there's obviously a weakness in his game right there. He's been alternating wins, losses his last 4. He's coming off of a first-round loss by submission to Michel Pereira. Kevin Holland has some 6 submissions in his repertoire. He has 8 in his career, 9 total UFC finishes out of his 12 wins. So he's a guy that finishes guys. This is going to be an interesting fight because the Pole Mikhail, he's going to want to keep this a standing fight, which I don't think Kevin Holland has any problem with.
Yeah.
But Kevin Holland, if you're making a smart game plan, his easiest path to victory is going to be submission. So I'm interested to see how he comes out and fights this fight.
Yeah, like you said, the sub game for McCall is obviously, a point that people could exploit. Kevin Holland has 7. He knows how to do it. He just prefers to knock people out. It's an easier way to earn a paycheck. Typically, you get the fight of the night, you get the bonuses, you get a pretty knockout, go home a lot quicker. That's fun. Kevin Holland, I think he's going to do well with this fight. He has a 7-inch reach advantage. He's 3 inches taller.
He's
long arms.
Tall, long guy. One interesting thing, Holland, his whole career has been up and downs. He wins 2 or 3 in a row. He loses 2 or 3 in a row. He's on a 2-fight losing streak right now. I agree with you. I think he's going to, when he's not fighting top guys, I think is when he shows out. He has spectacular finishes, spectacular fights. He just lost to a top guy. I think he's going to rebound nicely. I got Kevin Holland winning this fight. I think Kevin Holland pieces him up on the feet, gets him on the ground, and gets a submission.
Yeah, that very well could be. Kevin Holland wins 73% of the time as a favorite, which makes me feel better when I'm picking Kevin Holland. It doesn't make me feel great, but it makes me feel better when I see that McCall is 25% as a dog. So those two things kind of combined lead me to say and to lock in Kevin Holland prediction, 2nd round finish, TKO.
So there we go. Let's move on. Co-main event. Maybe the 2 most entertaining guys outside of the octagon that are fighting this weekend. Sean Strickland, Tarzan, 28 wins, 6 losses. He's 15-6 in the UFC. Coming off of the title loss to Duplessis, taking on Paulo Costa, 14-3 overall, 6-3 in the UFC. He has lost 3 out of his last 4, including a tough, close loss to Robert Whittaker. A loss that was probably his best performance in a while, if we're being honest, the fight against Whittaker.
Yeah, I agree.
Paulo Costa, is he finally going to take it serious? Because if he takes it serious and he gets out of his own head, I think everybody knows Costa's a legit fighter. He has 4 UFC KOs. Sean Strickland, how's he going to respond after losing the belt? He seems like the type of guy, it wouldn't affect him at all. He's going to come out and be the same guy, but we'll see. How do you see the fight going?
I agree with what you just said about if Sean Strickland loses the belt. When he lost the belt, he's going to come out this time.
I almost think it's almost a relief to him to not have the belt.
Dude, after he had the belt, he was almost putting on a different show. It was a different guy almost. Not the normal Sean Strickland. It was a exasperated version of himself. I like this Sean Strickland. He's been a lot more quiet lately. He's still doing his own posts and everything, but he doesn't have that same pump up that he did when he had the belt. 8 of his last 9 fights as a favorite in the UFC, he's won.
And this is going to be a stand-up and banging fight.
Yeah.
These guys are going to be in the pocket. They're going to be swinging. They're going to be hitting each other.
Yeah, they're gonna do what they got to do. I think this is going to be a fight that can easily go to the decision. On this one, I lean Sean Strickland. He's the same size as Paulo Costa. He's got bigger reach. 4-inch reach advantage, in my opinion, that's good. He's 8-2 against shorter reach. I love that. Paulo Costa's 4-3 against longer reach. That's one of those things where, we know Paulo Costa could do it, but has he taken all those fights seriously? It's hard to judge those stats when you're looking at the guy that has the most natural God-given talent against everybody else who has to work on it, and he just hasn't taken it as seriously as he could have.
But he has, as I said, he beat Luke Rockhold, and then his last fight was a loss, but against Robert Whittaker, who's one of the best of all time at the division, and it was a much better performance where he caught Robert with a head kick in the fight early on, and it was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
It was a better performance from him. Can he build off of that? I think he can build off of it, but I think Sean Strickland is going to rebound after his title loss, a questionable title loss where he could easily still be holding the belt.
I think he should be still holding the belt, but the thing I'll say about the Rockhold, he beat, and nothing to take away. All these guys are, professional fighters, way better than me. But he did beat a 39-year-old Rockhold.
Yes, but it was also after a long layoff where he had 2 horrible fights in a row. So you get a win where you can get a win, and he beat Luke Rockhold.
Anywho,
former champ.
Sean Strickland is 70, just like the last fight. Sean Strickland 72.7% winning as the favorite. Paulo Costa is 25% winning as the underdog. I go with the Tarzan. Sean Strickland to win, probably by decision, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think Sean Strickland, I could see him getting a finish in this, but most likely a decision win.
All right, let's move on to the fight that's going to make me probably cry either way.
As I said, my hand's already sweating.
I don't know what to do with my hands. Dustin the Diamond Poirier taking on the no nickname, no funny business, Islam Makhachev.
Islam 25-1, 14-1 in the UFC with 13 straight wins.
Minus 600 favorite.
Huge favorite. Taking on Poirier, coming off the huge knockout win against Benoit Saint Denis. Everybody thought it was a changing of the guard. Poirier said, no, let me knock this dude out real quick.
And a huge rebound victory after his tough KO loss to Gaethje in the BMF title.
Poirier, let me just read off some of his career stats. 22 career UFC wins alone. 11 UFC KOs. Really the only thing this guy hasn't done, he's won an interim belt. He's main evented multiple fight cards. The only thing he hasn't done was get the undisputed belt, and this is his chance against. Yes, he's the big underdog in this, but
this is his third title shot.
This is his third title shot. He fought Islam
and Charles.
I mean, he fought Khabib and Charles Oliveira, both tough losses. Dustin, I think he knows. He said it this week. This is his last chance at the title. He's hinted at retirement if he loses. All the odds are stacked against Dustin.
Yep.
It's a mismatch in terms of stylistically. It's the guy who's pretty good on the feet but elite on the ground versus the guy who's okay on the ground, elite on the feet. Usually you tend to go with the guy that's crazy on the ground.
Yep.
But something's telling me, man, I'm not going against Dustin the Diamond Poirier this time.
I refuse to go against him every time. You're right. Islam has won 13 in a row.
Including a first-round knockout of Volkanovski. Pretty much changed Volkanovski.
Yeah, pretty much did. He won his last four of his last 6 UFC fights by submission.
One interesting thing, this is his first, because he's fought Volkanovski his last 2 fights, his first true lightweight fight against a lightweight fighter since 2022. So it's been a little while since he's fought a guy this big.
Now, he's definitely not taking anything off with the training. He's going to be the real deal in this fight.
Yeah, you know, if Khabib's your coach, like, there's no shortcuts. Islam's going to be ready.
I want to point out, Islam and Khabib, both 5'10". Islam has 70.5 reach. Khabib had 70-inch reach. The Diamond had 72. Let's just start there. Dustin's last 6 fights have failed to go to the distance. We know how that record has panned. In stats, Dustin is 10-3 against fighters with shorter reach. 11-1 Makhachev against longer reach. So it's neck and neck. The guys are just, crazy. Dustin 6-2 against southpaw. Islam is 2-1. He doesn't fight southpaw often. Nobody likes fighting a southpaw fighter. This is one of those things where either side, the southpaw can be a big issue. Now, Islam has won 93% as the favorite. He's been the favorite a lot of times. Dustin has won 75% as the underdog. So it's hard to count the guy out.
Dustin's got to avoid the rear naked choke.
And he's got to avoid the guillotine.
But the rear naked choke, his last 2
his
losses
own guillotine,
to Khabib and to Charles Oliveira, both by rear naked choke. He has to avoid that. And yes, this is not the fight that he like he did against BSD.
Right.
Do not jump the gilly, Dustin. Do not bring this fight to the ground if you don't have to.
Now, the only other cool stat I got is that Dustin Poirier in his entire career is undefeated in June. And he's fighting on, June 1st, June 2nd?
June 1st, I believe.
So that's all I got. That's all enough for me to say that on June 1st, we're going to get an and new, and that and new is going to be Dustin the Diamond Poirier.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be a fight where I think Dustin is going to catch Islam in the first or second round coming in. He's going to shock the world. It's going to be one of those. We've had a lot of them recently in the past year or so in UFC. I say past year, probably the past since the UFC's been around. Oh shit moments.
Right.
That everybody.
There's been a lot in 2024.
There's been a lot already. I think this is one of them. I think Dustin finally gets over the hump, does the ultimate win, ultimate underdog win. I think Dustin the Diamond Poirier by knockout beats Islam.
Let me ask you: is Islam a better fighter on the ground than Khabib?
I don't think he's better on the ground, but I think he's better overall than Khabib.
Okay. The only thing I can ever think about is if Dustin ever got to get a rematch with Khabib, he may be able to hang something different because in that third round he rocked him, or in second round he rocked him.
He did rock him, but
Maybe this is that version of the remake since he'll never get to fight him. I think coming in with a strong camp, I got to say it again, and new, Dustin the Diamond Poirier.
let's go Dustin.